Hello, friends. Welcome to the Tell It Like It Is podcast. I'm your host, Alexi Bailey, and today I have a very special guest, Elizabeth Rainey.
Yes.
Thank you for joining me, Elizabeth. I'm happy to have
Hey,
you here.
thank you for having me.
Elizabeth, I was reflecting back on how we met, and I couldn't remember the exact moment. Do you remember?
For me, the moment where we were like actually having a conversation was doing one of the 10K races. Was it in Queens?
Okay.
And we like passed each other, or like some point we passed each other, and then we just kept passing each other. And then at one point we just kind of like ran together towards the end. We talked, and then we kind of exited together, and like I think you went your way and then I went mine. And that was like our first like encounter or whatever. So yeah.
That was 2013.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Yeah. It was good times. Living in New
Now,
York City, it was great.
I have to say, like, to this day, when I think about running, I do think about the 2013 marathon, right?
Oh, yes.
And we started together, or not together, but we started, and I think I saw you like coming down the bridge at mile one,
Yes.
and I was like nervous. So I was like trying to just keep pace, and you were just like, no, slow and steady. This is how I'm gonna do it.
Yes. Because
And
otherwise, I mean, we had to eat 26 miles that day. So I had look slow and steady wins the race. I'm a turtle back of the pack runner. So I just needed to get through it. And starting out fast wasn't my plan.
so I was like very excited and like trying to keep pace, and and I remember like I was just like, all right, I'll have a good race. And I kept with that, and I think at some point, like maybe mile 18 or something, like you caught up to me and you passed me. And I was pretty much like done more or less, and you
Mhm.
just like, slow and steady, Alexi, and you just kept going. And I was like, and I never forgot that. Like I still, like, I knew that in theory before, but seeing that you in that race, because I would have had a much better race if I had just stayed with you. Like we would have had more fun and all of these things, but I was so like tight and just like, I'm gonna run. And yeah.
Yeah. The adrenaline definitely kicked in right at the beginning of the race. And I think, was it mile 18? That's like up in the Bronx area, right? Or like somewhere close
Yes.
to it where there's not a lot of crowds. And so you kind of had to turn inward and like think through, how am I going to mentally sustain for the next, you know, what, what is that, 6 miles or so, or 7 miles? Um, and that for me was my mantra, like 1 mile at a time, have fun with it. Like we worked really hard to get there. So why not just enjoy it with the pain and the mental angst at times, but it was still a good time.
Have you done any other marathons since then?
Yes. I completed New York, Chicago, Kiowa, and then I actually traveled to Tokyo to do the Tokyo Marathon and got my first DNF. And that was got my first DNF in Tokyo, and I was supposed to do Berlin that following in the fall, but because of the DNF, I was done. And I stopped running after that, just because I was excited, but felt like maybe running isn't my jam anymore. And so after that, I just called it quits.
Was it that they closed the course?
Yeah, so you never think, for me in that moment, I never forgot about the like like the minute, like how long is an actual minute? Because I was getting up on like the 6 mile mark or the 10 mile mark, 10K mark. And right as I had a minute to get from where I was to cross the line to continue the race. And right when I got up to the line, they cut me off. They like closed the course. So they were like, "Thank you so much. You're done." They gave me a blanket, a bottle of water, and some fruit, and they shuttled us to the finish or back to the corral area.
So what if you just kept going?
Well, you had to cross because of the time, and I'm a slow runner, right? Like you had to cross that checkpoint in order to continue. They wouldn't let you go. There's just so many folks that are like, no, 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 stop. They're like stopping you on the course because you didn't meet the time requirement. And literally they were like, thank you, go this way. So they said, go this way. And I was like, but I want to finish. Like the line is right there. And I never forgot that. It's like, I think about a minute. Like I had 1 minute to get there and I felt like I failed. I felt like I should have been keeping up. I don't run with like a pace group. I kind of just, as you know, I just kind of do my thing. And I was in my head, like I should have ran with the pace group, or I should have.
This was your first. This was the first 6 miles.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So I literally traveled to Tokyo to run a 10K.
So you probably wouldn't have been able to keep up the other markers, even if you went around that one. You'd have got stopped at some point.
At some point, and I think, and I'm so glad that you reminded me because I actually got to that point of acceptance. Because one thing with Tokyo, when I was a part of that marathon, they have these runners who like run with balloons, and your goal is to, in essence, stay ahead of them, because if you're staying ahead of them, then you know that you're doing well on time. It becomes an issue when they pass you. So as I'm running and I see them at the corner of my eye, I low-key get discouraged. I'm like, I'm not gonna make it. I got in my head a lot. And I felt like in mile 2, maybe, I thought, this isn't fun. Like, because I'm chasing these balloons to ensure that I stay ahead. This isn't how I trained. This is not gonna be a fun race. And when I finally sat down, stopped crying, right? And just said, you know what, Liz, you could have done all of the things and you would have probably still not make it. And thankfully it happened at mile 6 and not at mile like 25 or whatever. So I have to get to that level of acceptance. But it just ruined it for me because I didn't start out running to feel like that. For me, I wanted running to be fun. I wanted to be a space where I could build community with people, not to chase someone wearing a balloon to ensure that I can get a medal, So yeah, that was disheartening, but I learned a lot about myself. And just it made me reevaluate how I want to train, or how I thought I wanted to train for future races.
So just for anyone listening, right? When you have a marathon in a city, they shut down the city, right? Mm-hmm. And the course at some point involves bridges, major highways, and all of these things. So the city makes a deal, the marathon makes a deal with the city to keep the roads open for the marathon for this amount of time.
Yes.
And one of the things that I find a little bit confusing is that they let the slowest people start last.
Yes.
Yes. So then the slowest people start last, so they have the shortest amount of time to cross that bridge, right? So if you don't cross that bridge during that time, there's no way physically you could continue the actual race. Right. So in New York City Marathon, they don't close the bridges, right? There's always a sidewalk option. So although New York City has cutoffs, it's very turtle friendly because you can always go to the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. And even in 2016, that was my worst marathon where my time didn't qualify at the end, but I finished the 26.2 miles.
Wow.
And I crossed the finish line. The finish line was still up. Peter Chacha was the president. He hugged me. We took photos, and it didn't technically count because they had already started removing the timing material, right? So that marathon for me was somewhere between 8.5 or 9 hours.
Wow. How did you recover from that? Right. Because a similar experience happened to me in Chicago, where again, slow runner, I get to the finish line, they've already broken it down, you know? So like for me, I thought, well, I did it, but it would be nice to have that time counted. So I'm curious to know how you processed that, or how did you handle that?
Well, to give New York Roadrunners credit, I got my medal. Like I said, I had all the festivities off the finish line.
Mhm.
I got my medal, but the time just didn't register. And I know some people have like fought to get some kind of acknowledgement, but I called it a success.
Yeah.
Because 2016, I was at my heaviest. I was somewhere like 245.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't train well, and psychologically it was tough, and I knew it was going to be a tough day. So the success was persevering regardless
That's good.
and seeing it through. I know a lot of people who would have finished in 5 hours and didn't do it because they didn't train, or that's unacceptable for them. So for me, you have to, like you said, what is this about?
Yeah.
And yeah, I just went with that mindset. And there were people who finished after me.
Yeah.
The New York Times, they feature runners, the last one to cross, and they're celebrated for persevering. And I think it's a story worth celebrating, because a lot of people wouldn't dare 26 miles.
And the preparation for that, like I was having a conversation with a friend just the other day around preparing for a marathon, like your life, like was it New York City? I think we started training in July, like that's like dead of summer. And for 4 months, you are dedicated to training weekly, getting your mileage in, cross training, doing yoga, doing like all of these things to ensure that you're in tip top shape, or in better shape to be ready to run. Okay, I'll just say it like that. And so to do all of that and then get to a different outcome, like you finished, but not the way you wanted to, or not crossing the finish line, and there are people there yelling for you and screaming for you, like that does something to you. But at the end of the day, you have to think, man, I did that. Like I sacrificed, I trained, I was disciplined. And for me, that's what it was about for me training for the marathon. It's like being disciplined. I became more disciplined training for that marathon. Like I changed my eating. I was working out consistently. I was in the best shape of my life living in New York City, because I need to be a better runner. And so you just have to celebrate it, the success of like, I did that. And a year ago or 2 years ago, I wouldn't dare think about doing it, but I changed my mind. I got off the couch and I did something. So, yeah.
What inspired you to want to do it?
Oh yeah, the marathon. So, I just moved to New York City. I think this was, my goodness, 2010, 2011. The dates all run together for me, and it's so bad. But I remember, because I moved from Georgia to New York, and I remember leaving the subway station and having to walk up a long flight of stairs. At my heaviest weight, I was 320 pounds. And I said, I can't do this every day. Like, this is work. Like, where is the nearest escalator? Because these stairs are not my friend. And I remember getting home and was like, I have to get my life together. So I downloaded the C2 5K app.
Okay.
And attempted to do the first day. I used to live in Washington Heights, so I would go up by Fort Tryon Park.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I went running, and then I was like, this is great, I think, but in order for this to be sustainable, I need community. And got home and Googled Black women running. And that's how I became, that's how I was introduced to Black Girls Run.
Okay.
And so met up with them for a group run. And it's something about being in community with other women who have like-minded goals. And for me, it was never about a race, Alexi. It was about, I just need to get in shape. But when you're surrounded by people who are gold diggers, right? Like these women were like, they're doing triathlons, they're doing 10Ks, 5Ks. I just wanted to do a lap around Central Park, or at least conquer Harlem Hill, right? But it was contagious for me. So I'm running with them, or walking with them, or wogging, whatever you want to call it. And I just became so inspired. And I thought if I needed something to work towards, and the marathon was the thing for me. So I think it was the beginning of 2011. That's right. I became a vegan, still trying to be a better runner. And we made the decision I decided that I needed to get better. And so that was the inspiration behind all of that. Was like, I wanted to be consistent. I wanted to be in shape, and I wanted to be with like-minded individuals who had goals. And that's what inspired me. Long answer, but that's the truth.
Perfect. Are you still a vegan?
No, no, sir. Oh, goodness gracious. So I consider myself, well, I was a throwback vegan, right? So I became a vegan when there weren't a lot of food options. I just had eggplant, mushroom, lentils. But no, what happened, I was a vegan for 3 years. And after living in New York City, I relocated back to the South, because like I said, I'm from South Carolina. Or I don't know if I mentioned that to you, but I am originally from South Carolina. And there were, the struggle was real. And I'll tell you how I stopped being a vegan. This is so bad, but I'll just be real, because that's just how I am. We were at Texas Roadhouse. And for anyone who knows about Texas Roadhouse, their ribs are fire, okay? And I remember being so tired of lentils and mushrooms. And I think I was hungry, and I wasn't operating at like my true capacity. I'm being so for real. Like I needed something to fuel me. So we're at the table, and literally I have a salad. That's it. I had a salad. That's it, with oil and vinegar dressing. And they bring out my mom's food and my cousin's food, who he's 7. And he had like a little mini slab of ribs, right? And I was like, excuse me, can I have a little bit of your food? Can I try some of your ribs? And he was like, no, like you're gonna waste it. And I was like, trust me, I'm not. So I got the rib, and I bit, and it was, Alexi, I don't know how to explain it. It was delicious. And I think I ordered like a rack of ribs. Like I ordered ribs because I was like, oh, it's game time. Like this is delicious. Because I just felt like I needed something. I feel like being a vegan I was so in tune with my body as far as like health wise, but I didn't understand, or I understood like the mechanics of like how to fuel my body, but it just, that now that I think back on that time, that probably wasn't the best route for me to go. While I experienced weight loss and I was in tune with my body, I kept thinking about, is there a better way to approach eating healthy without removing certain things from my eating plan? And so again, being like, I was in South Carolina for a few months before that happened, but it was just, I was eating the same thing every day. And it was just not sustainable. At least in New York, we had restaurants. I mean, different food options. I could hit up Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. But if I'm even being more honest, I think it was, I was tired. I really wanted meat, and I didn't want to have to continue to go through that of like, this is harder than, it's hard. It's already hard, but it's not, it's not helping me because now I'm angry
Right, right, right.
at this. So anyways, I can go on about that, but I'm not. But
Okay.
that is the truth. Um, it served the season that it was supposed to, right? I know it's possible. I know that I can put my mind to something and do it. Um, but yeah,
I
it's
know, I'm not saying you, but I know vegans who eat like a lot of carbs and desserts, and they're very unhealthy, right?
mm,
So
yeah.
it's like I remember I had this vegan friend who, you know, ate carbs and was unhealthy. So
Mhm.
not because you're vegan means you're necessarily like eating all the right things, kind of thing, you know?
Right.
And I know it's tough from a meat eater perspective. I know it's tough, but there's like a million different vegetables you can cook, roast, and boil every day and like switch it up. But it takes work, right? You have to go seek them out, you know, figure out how. Like I can't cook. It would be a lot of work for me to kind of, all right, how am I gonna figure this out? You know, sometimes I do vegan and I can maintain it. But at the end of the day, if I see chicken breast, I allow myself to eat it, and then I continue mostly vegan, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know.
That's good. I think you there is a meme or there's an article or something that I read. I'm always consuming a lot of information. But I was one of those vegans that you would consider like a fat vegan. Like I was a vegan, but I didn't look like what people or society thought a vegan should look like.
Right.
Because I still like while I was slimming down, I still had weight on. I had still had weight to me. Um, and there are times like you're right, it took work. And I'm thinking I could probably go grab some fries. That's faster,
Right.
right?
Right.
But then like I even learned, I think there's one of the fast food chains cooks their or part of their fry recipe is like dairy. And I'm like, well, then this is not, I had to cut out fries.
Okay.
And I'm like, what am I gonna eat? What am I gonna eat? And
It's a
so
lifestyle. It's
it
a
is.
lifestyle. It's a
And
lifestyle.
so,
If
yeah,
you commit to it, you'll definitely reap the rewards, but it's work.
absolutely.
And you know, you're trying, I think before you came on, you were trying to get a sense of what the show is about. The show
Mhm.
is about people, right?
Yeah.
Because here we are talking about running and you think we're going to talk about whatever, and now here we are talking about vegan, and
Yes.
um, basically your lifestyle and what you eat, it's based on what's available and what's convenient and all of these
Yes.
things, right? And what I'm trying to point out with the show is to get people to talk about real life, because
Mhm.
here you are trying to change your life. You want to be healthy, you want to thrive, and you have to choose between going out 11 o'clock at night to grocery shop or eating French fries that has dairy in it.
Mhm.
And these are the kinds of things that people are dealing with that I just want to talk about. So
Yeah.
we didn't plan this. That's what
No.
I'm saying. But it's real, right?
Right.
I struggle with all of these things too. Like I'm trying to eat healthy. You know, the kids are begging me to eat pizza, and then I buy them pizza. And now it's easier for me to eat a slice of pizza than for me to go worry about what I'm gonna go eat now.
Yes.
So it's still
Yes.
a struggle.
Indeed. Indeed. I still like to this day, I have this conversation often around because I have a Peloton, so I ride my Peloton. But like, what good is having the exercise piece down when the meals are still a little bit shaky? I'm not a meal prepper.
Mhm.
I find that if I was, I could possibly be better, like weight wise. But again, it's about convenience, what's available, the time, the discipline, the consistency. And at the end of the day, when I'm thinking about all of that, I'm just like, look, let me go to Chick-fil-A, get a grilled chicken salad or something. I mean,
That's not bad.
seriously.
Grilled
But I
chicken salad,
think,
that's not bad.
yes, look, sometimes I get that, not all the time. Being real. I just think that it's just a lot to consider. And I feel like So this is something that I feel like the Lord is working with me on, right? Like he's just highlighting things that I thought I had a handle on, um, things that I thought that I was doing well, i.e. discipline, consistency. I thought I was doing well, but it's like, like you still need to work on this. You need to work on these things. And I feel like he's still working on me with that. Because is it more about me not wanting to take the time to do it? Right? Or is it me like going to Chick-fil-A because it's faster because I'm an emotional eater? So yeah, so it's like peeling back all of those layers. And I feel like at the end of the day, like that is just something that I am continuing to like work on.
Right.
So
Yeah, so tell it like it is, it's about peeling back those layers and there's a certain level of vulnerability to all of this that I appreciate when people come on the show, and I try not to make it invasive or scary, but inevitably there's a certain level of vulnerability.
yeah.
One of the things that I'm advocating for is that through people sharing their story, right, other people can relate. And I think we need more food prep businesses. That's what we need ultimately, because everyone's busy, everyone's tired. We live in a fast food culture. And as long as McDonald's is ready in 2 minutes, you need a healthy meal that can be ready in 2 minutes as well. And not super expensive and still decent.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Was not funny. I think it's just, this is the reality that we're in, where it's like, when I would go out to have dinner with friends at restaurants, as a vegan, my meal will cost more, right? Because I'm having to buy sides, because there's not really, like in some restaurants they have veggie plates, but if you're having to order all sides, or they don't like customize their menu to meet your dietary need, you're having to pay more to eat healthier. And when you think about people who have to maintain families and thinking through, like, is it what's better for my family, for me as a person, for me as a household leader financially? Fast food is sometimes more affordable. The healthier food options are more expensive. So it's like trying to choose, like, which one am I going to choose? And so, yeah, just hearing you say that, that kind of like just popped up for me.
Yeah, you can get a whole chicken for $6.
Yeah. Yeah.
So growing up, who was the person in charge of your meals?
So I would say like my mom. So just a little background. My parents were married. They divorced when I was younger. I think I was like 8 or 9. And so then my mom raised me, and then I would go spend, time with my dad. But for the most part, my mom, she cooked. She would go out to eat from time to time, but my dad was like, we're going to go to these restaurants because he didn't cook. And if he did cook, he made peanut butter and banana sandwiches, or these salads with a whole bunch of iceberg lettuce, ham, tomatoes, and some ranch dressing. So yeah. But my dad was, when I think about, my dad was he was a bodybuilder. He worked out. He was a karate instructor. So he ate well. He ate a lot because he just had he was doing a lot of things athletic wise. And so, yeah. So I had the best of both worlds, if you could say that. So my mom was a cooker, and my dad, and we went out to eat I went out to eat with her too, but for the most part, my dad took us out.
Did you do karate with him?
I did, off and on for a number of years. I was also, at the time when he was teaching, I played basketball and volleyball. So I was very involved in other sports, and I kind of took karate when I felt like it. Like, he didn't press upon me, like, you have to do karate, you have to do these things. But it was just something that I he gave me some basic tools to use if I ever needed to.
Okay. All right. Did you play sports in school?
Yeah, so I played basketball 7th and 8th grade, and then I played volleyball 7th through 12th grade.
Volleyball. Okay.
I didn't play in college. I ended up I was just a student. I was just a student. heavily involved in intramural sports, but it was one of those things where I never, I mean, despite being tall, I never had a desire, I guess, to play at the collegiate level. So yeah,
I think there's a certain amount of stereotype with that, right?
absolutely,
And
absolutely. You
you
see a
see,
tall Black woman walking down the street or whatever. I'm 6'1", so it's like, oh yeah, you play basketball? No, play volleyball for fun. But I should also say that I had a knee injury where in middle school, and the doctor was like, your knee's in bad shape. You have to choose which sport you want to play. And I chose to stick with volleyball versus basketball because I just enjoyed it a lot more.
where'd you go to college?
I went to a small college in Jefferson City. It's called Carson. At the time, it was Carson Newman College, but now it's Carson Newman University.
So is that South Carolina?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. So you went from South Carolina to Tennessee?
Yes.
Okay.
And I went there, majored in broadcast journalism, mass communications, broadcasting emphasis, and a minor in sociology. Because in my mind, I thought I was going to be a news reporter. That's what I loved at the time. I was in a program at our high school that allowed us to get involved with like producing announcements for the students. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a broadcast journalist. This is great. And then I get to Carson Newman. I get into housing and residential life. I become a resident assistant for freshmen. And then I thought, no, I want to work in student affairs. I want to be in higher ed. And so I ended up graduating. And my first job in higher ed was working at Spellman, where I was a resident director. So I moved from South Carolina to Tennessee, then to Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
What is Spellman like?
Spellman was amazing. I think as a person who went from being in a predominantly white space, right? Because Carson Newman was a predominantly white university, to then go into the HBCU arena. I mean, it was like night and day. And to be around so many goal-oriented and focused women who believed in community and sisterhood, seeing how they navigate life in the AUC, building relationships with their Morehouse brothers or their Clark Atlanta friends, like it was just amazing. Probably it was very impactful for me to see. And I learned a lot by watching them and supporting them as they transition from like high school seniors to college freshmen. I was over the freshman residence hall there. So to be a part of that was pretty awesome.
Spellman's all girls?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Got it. So what was that experience like? An all girl HBCU?
HBCU. I mean, from my perspective, I think I got to see women who achieved their goal of like attending Spellman, right? Some of them were legacy, some of them, going to college for the first time. So you see all types of women who are coming in, who are embracing this experience, how they are affirmed in their identity, who like, I find anytime I meet a Spellman woman, I'm like, they just have this dynamic way of being, okay? And so to be able to support them as like I said, like coming from high school. And then like I remember them as like high school seniors checking into the residence hall for the first time. And then I remember, okay, now it's move out day and they've just grown and they just developed into stronger women, strong leaders. They've made connections across, the campus, across other campuses, and just seeing them just thrive in that environment, right? That for me was really cool to see, and I would also say that for me, my work with them was in the residence hall. So it's like I would see them after class, during class, in the cafeteria, helping them plan events, getting ready for homecoming. And in a way, it was like I was able to participate in that because I was the staff person that was a part of that. That was a part of my work stream, right? So, but it was great. I had a great time. I was there for about 3 years, and then I ended up moving to Louisiana. I went to work at a residential, an early entrance to college residential program in Natchitoches, Louisiana. So I kind of just, yeah.
So how do you think your experience would have been different if you went to Spellman? Like outcome-wise for you, like did you get everything you wanted from that you would have gotten, you think, at Spellman?
I think that's a really good question. That's probably something I'll have to sit with because, like I said, and let me ask you, like you were saying, did I get what I needed? And you were, I guess, from my university, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Right? I did not. I think when I arrived on campus, was I one of 8 Black women? I don't even remember. It was like there are very few Black women on my campus. Representation wasn't there. The one Black professor, woman, I'm still close to her to this day, love her dearly. Like that was my exemplar on campus. We didn't have Black fraternities and sororities, right? And so if you wanted to join a sorority, you had to join their sorority. So it's like, yeah, like the representation wasn't there. So while I didn't get what I needed in some capacities, like what we didn't get, we kind of made it happen, work for ourselves, or we sought out people who could be the mentor, the guide, the thought partner. Like we just had to do that. And I wonder sometimes what Black women on Carson Newman's campus go through now, right? What their experiences is like now. Because I was there in 97 to 2001. So to go from that to being able to basically be for the students at Spellman what I didn't have, right? Even though there's a whole bunch of us, there's a whole bunch of Black women around, Black men or whoever, to be supportive to these Spellmanites. Yeah. And if I would have, and that's weird because I would have to even envision myself at Spellman. I think, yeah, I'd probably be more affirmed in my Blackness. I would come out. This is it. Here's a thought. I think when I think about identity development, right? Racial identity, like what that means, being more well-versed or more having clearer examples of what it means to be Black, all right? Being a Black woman and navigating the different areas of life, having a mentor, building strong community with Black women, maybe through a sorority. Yeah, like I think those are some ways that my life would have been different versus me having to pick up and learn about that later. So yeah.
One of the major themes that we come across is education, right? And also the other theme is identity, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you were very close to the 7 or 8 Black women that you had in your school.
Maybe 2 or 3 of them.
But you guys were all at the lunch table together or something like this, and
yeah. So yeah, you go to. When I went back for homecoming one year, we talked about how when you walk into the cafeteria, like you had your pockets of, like, you knew where this group was going to sit and where this group was going to sit. Like that was just a thing. And so yeah, like we did life together. But I also managed to have like relationships with other students as well.
Of course.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so we're kind of exploring the questions, right? And it's one of these things, right? Dr. Umar came to mind as we're talking, right?
Oh yeah.
And I am worried because as a person as a Black person, you have to prepare to fit into white spaces.
Mm.
So the question is, do you go to an all Black school and try to get grounded in your identity first, or is it better to assimilate earlier on and try to supplement your Black identity?
Mm. Mm.
But again, these are like,
Yeah.
it's thinking points, right? um
And I think, and this is something, I think that's a really good question. And when you asked it, my mind immediately went to something that I'm currently thinking through, or I have been thinking through for a while. And the thought, or my point is, I learned earlier on, i.e., in college, how to water myself down
Play the
to
game.
make myself more digestible for
Right.
white people. And that wasn't okay, because by doing that, I'm doing a disservice to myself, right? I remember, and it became even more apparent for me after, being pulled over on campus by the cops, being wearing a baseball cap, being referred to as sir. You just driving home one night. I used to wait tables while I was in college. I got a new car one year for Christmas, and it had new car tags on it. Being pulled over on the there's a, is it 20E? I forgot the road that connects Jefferson City to Knoxville. It's night, and I'm being pulled over because I fit the description of a person in the car that has been reported stolen. So I learned how to, yeah, and I think had I chose a different route, education-wise, university-wise, HBC, whatever, I would have learned how to handle that better. And so I started being in a space where now it's like, I'm not gonna water myself down to make myself digestible, to make you more comfortable. That's not my jam, and I'm not gonna do it. But I know, I was trying to think through a while ago, where did it happen? And when you said that, it was like, it was at college. Like, I learned how to, because I was in these situations where, what other choice did I have?
Mhm.
And I didn't have a model to like help me
Right.
navigate that. So, yeah.
What kind of work did your mom do?
My mom worked, she started out, she was working at Duke Power for a while. Then she went to work at Holston. They made photo albums. And then she started working at Bic, and they make think pens. So she, for all of my life, she worked in jobs, yeah, assembly, whatever, warehouse jobs. And my dad, all of my life, even up until he passed, he worked at overnight transportation. He was a forklift operator. And now my mom is a teacher's assistant for special needs students at an elementary school. And so, yeah, that's what she does now.
So inevitably, I started the show because, I'm a friendly person. I start chatting with people and we just start talking, or, you go to a barbecue and the conversation goes. And I felt like I was having powerful conversations casually, and I wanted to capture that. And I wanted to, promote that, because it's important for us to have these talks, right?
Yeah.
And I know that this conversation's happening. I know that there's people who's already doing this work, but I feel like I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of young people who aren't necessarily, there's a culture shock, right? You think, oh, I'm just gonna go to the school and get an education, and you just think you're not even aware of what's out there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that wasn't a part of your decision making, or you weren't aware of that when you went to college.
And to even give you more context into how I even ended up there. In my family, I was first generation college student. And I started on the weekends in middle school. I would go to our library and read the Peterson's Guide, the different. It's a book that lists all of the different colleges, and I would literally just go in there and just read. And then I read about Carson Newman, and I was like, this is a school that I wanted to go to. It's Baptist. Like, this is where I'm going. In 8th grade, I made up my mind, and I didn't look anywhere else. My mom was like, you need to choose another school. And I was like, well, I'll choose the University of Tennessee. It's 20 miles up the road. So I chose UT. I never looked in state. Like I said, I read about Carson Newman, and that was it. And then I applied to both. I applied to Carson Newman, then I applied to UT to make my mom happy. Ended up getting into both. And then I decided on Carson Newman. I don't know what mindset. It just, when I read it and then I visited, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this is going to be great.
What was the white demographic in your high school?
I don't know our percent.
I mean,
I would say it was like 50. It was a balance, I think. In my like my hometown is pretty small. I would say, I don't know. I don't want to even say a number. But I would say that there's a balance, right?
Okay.
More so Black, white, and then other people of color as well, but I don't have the specifics, and I don't want to like give a number and
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So yeah.
Elizabeth, let's take a really, really quick break and we'll be right back, okay?
Okay, sounds good.